These are the 0.6a notes for PreCalc. We're going to be talking about lines today. You've seen all this before in Algebra 1 and Algebra 2, so I am going to move kind of quickly through the video. Feel free to pause it when you need to. So the first thing we're going to talk about is slope. The slope formula is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Very important to label your points as x1, y1 and x2, y2. And then just very carefully plug them in. Being careful about any double negatives that show up. That would turn to a positive. Again, double negatives dividing would also turn to a positive. And then I reduce that to get 1/3. Positive 1/3. Example number 2. Same thing, we label. Double negatives turn positive. And in math, you cannot divide by 0. So when you have that and you divide by 0 in your calculator, you get an error message. As a slope, we call that undefined. If there's a 0 in the denominator there, it's undefined. And a line that's undefined actually looks straight up and down. That would be an undefined slope. All right, now let's find the slope from a graph. So for these, you need to think more rise over run. So you just walk from one point to the other, figure out how far it is. So this one is up 2, over 2, and just reduce, divide as best as possible. All right, for the next one, you have that flat line. And when you have that, your slope is going to be 0. So notice the 0 versus the undefined. Undefined straight up and down, 0 straight across. Right? Example number 4 is asking us to write the equation of the line. So we want to write these in slope-intercept form. Y equals mx plus b. M is your slope. B is your y-intercept. And remember, y is always the one that points to the sky. X-axis goes across, y-axis goes up and down. So if we can identify the slope and the intercept, then we can write the equation. So it looks like the slope, if I walk from one point to the next, looks like I'm going up 3 and over 1. 3 over 1, I'm just going to write into my equation as 3. Put the x next to it. And then right here is your y-intercept, so positive 2. The next one does not have all the dots quite filled in on your paper. So you can fill those in when you need to. Just get a couple of the main ones on there. The slope here is negative because it's going downhill. And it looks like it's going down 1 over 2. So my slope will be negative 1/2. Write the x. And it looks like it's crossing the y-axis at negative 3. So minus 3 at the end. All right. Forgot to erase this from last time. Sorry about that. Okay. So on the backside, we're doing point slope form. Point slope form is used if you don't have the information to do slope intercept form. So then we have to do point slope form. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. So if they give you a point instead of the intercept, we can just label it as an x1, y1. M is still our slope. And we can just put it into this equation and eventually turn it into slope-intercept form. So y minus y1, negative 1, equals the slope, 2, x minus x1, which is 3. The double negative can turn into a positive 1. We'll distribute. And then get the 1 by get the y by itself by subtracting 1 from both sides. Y equals 2x minus 7. For the next problem, if the slope of a line is 3/4, that's going to be our m, and it contains a point, -7, -5. Find the equation. So same setup as before. The only thing that's going to change here is we have this fraction to deal with. So y minus -5 equals 3/4 x minus -7. Change the double negative to a plus. And we distribute. Change that to a plus as well. 3/4 x plus, and when we multiply fractions, I'm going to go over here and do it off to the side so you have a good example of what we're doing here. When you multiply 3/4 times 7, make sure you put 7 over 1, and then multiply across the top and across the bottom. 21 over 4. There is no need for common denominators when you multiply. Right, our next step, subtract 5 from both sides. And then this part is going to require us to get common denominators because we're subtracting. So I'm going to do it like I did in elementary school. 21 over 4 minus 5. I'm going to put that over 1. And now you have to get common denominators. So I'm going to use the common denominator of 4. 21 over 4 is already good to go. And in order to get 1 to be 4, I have to multiply it by 4 at the bottom. And of course, I have to do that same thing at the top to get 20 over 4. Then you subtract. 21 minus 20 is 1. And you keep the denominator the same, 1/4. There's your final answer. All right, example number 7. It says, write the equation of the line that passes through these 2 points, x1, y1, x2, y2. I don't have my slope. So the first thing I need to do is find the slope. We'll do that using the slope formula. y2 minus y1, x2 minus x1. Slope is -1. And then from there, we can use our slope and this point, x1, y1, and plug it into our formula. We'll distribute and get the y by itself, add 4. You could write -1x, or you could just write -x plus 2. There we go. For example number 8, you have the equation, you have the line, and they're asking us to write the equation. So it's kind of like what we did on the front. So we need to find our slope. Slope look like it is down 1 over 3, so -1/3. And then we run into a slight issue because the y-intercept, if you can see, it looks like it's between 2 points. It's not 7, but it's not quite 8. So then we run into a problem. So what we're going to do here is instead use one of the points that we know. We'll use this right here. We'll name that point 4, 6, 4 over 6 up. And then we'll have to use that as our x1, y1. So not quite as simple as the ones we did on the front, but we're using that same formula. We have another opportunity here to practice our fractions. Remember, when we multiply fractions, we multiply just straight across the top. So +4/3 Always put the whole number over 1. And then we add 6. That's when we'll need our common denominators. So we'll take 4/3 plus 6 over 1. Our common denominator will be 3. Multiply by 3, get 18. And then add the numerators together to make 22. Always keep the denominator the same when we're adding or subtracting. So 22 over 3. Y equals negative 1/3 x plus 22 over 3. And 22 divided by 3 in your calculator is 7.3 repeating. So that's why it ends up going right there between the 7 and the 8, because that's actually 7.3. All right, that's it.